Ms. Galante, I ascribe no malevolent intent to you or your predecessors. I have no doubt that you and your staff work very hard. But in listening to your testimony, I am reminded of that famous line from a Marx Brothers film, "Who are you going to believe, me or your own eyes?" And so what I hear from you is, frankly, what I've heard from you and your predecessor and the Secretary for many years, that all is well. And what I see with my own eyes is a Congressional Budget Office report that shows a $60 billion swing from what was supposed to be a $15 billion savings. Instead, $45 billion savings is instead turned into a $15 billion cost. What I see with my own eyes is a GAO report. Congratulations, FHA has now been added to the high-risk series. What I see with my own eyes is your letter dated September 27th. I notice that you and many of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle use the phrase required mandatory appropriation. That might be the phrase in Washington. The phrase on Main Street is bailout. And what I've known is either you, your predecessor, or the Secretary have been so wrong for so long, whether it had to do with the value of the MMIF, whether it had to do with your capital ratios, whether it had to do with the need of a bailout, and then when you finally acknowledged you needed one, it turned out to be almost twice the size. So with all due respect, Ms. Galante, why is the testimony credible today? And I particularly find it quite poignant in your written testimony. One of the last lines you have is FHA continues to be a reliable steward of taxpayer dollars. What's different today than all that we've heard for the last 4 years of this administration?
So, Mr. Chairman, let me be clear. If you look at the testimony chart on page 2, which is based on the CBO report that just came out a couple of weeks ago, what we did was we added to that chart the 2013 receipts, and we broke down this chart to show you the changes in the economic value of the fund by year based on the actuarial reports, based on the budget reestimates. This happens every year. There is a...
Well, that's kind of the point, Ms. Galante, because we've seen these charts before. We've seen them for 4 years, and for 4 years they've been wrong. So, I mean, again, what's different today? Why should this committee believe the testimony today when we haven't been able, it hasn't been credible for 4 years running?
So, again, Mr. Chairman, since I've been here, since the Secretary has been here, what we have reported on are the results of independent actuary, the results of annual budget reestimates that are done as part of the administration's budget. And the point I want to make here is the years in which this country was hit by the worst recession in 70 years, our portfolio took a significant hit.
I understand that,
no
Ms.
doubt about
Galante,
that.
but again, the housing crash came in 2007. We're almost at 2014. You would acknowledge that for the entire time that this administration has been in office, that FHA has failed to meet its legal standard of maintaining a 2% capital ratio, correct?
We have been under the 2%.
Even though the law says shall, not may, not might, not could, but shall. Given that previous predictions, again, have proven so wrong for so long, for 4 years running, you've been in violation of the law. Has anybody in your agency been held accountable for this? Has anybody been fired? Has anybody been reassigned? Has anybody had a reprimand? What is the level of accountability at FHA for these actions?
So, Mr. Chairman, the 2% capital ratio is a requirement. We have worked very hard over these 4 years, as I've talked about, increasing premiums, changing policies, changing credit standards to work our way.
But did you fully
back.
utilize those tools to bring your capital ratio up to 2%? So maybe the trend line could have been in the right direction, but didn't you have tools available to you that you could have used further?
Well, let's be clear. We didn't even have the ability to raise premiums until 2010. We had to come back to Congress to get the authority to increase premiums. So we have used
Well, my
our
time has expired, so was anybody held accountable, yes or no? My time has expired. The chair now recognizes the ranking member for 5 minutes.